Invited to any more stuff to go to.
This meeting of the Rolling Meadows City Council is hereby called to order. Would everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Cannon. Here. Prana.
Present.
Majikis. Here. Judd.
Here.
Baner.
Here.
Diastis.
Here.
Beanbas.
Present.
With 7 present and none absent, there is a quorum present this evening. Therefore, members of the audience are reminded that these proceedings are being videotaped for current and future broadcast over the city's cable television channel. The first item on the agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of 2 separate meetings, the January 19th Committee of the Whole and the January 26th Council meeting. Therefore, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider both sets of minutes in one motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, it is therefore in order for a motion to approve both sets of minutes. Mr. Veenbos has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to either set of minutes? Seeing none, the question is, shall both sets of minutes be adopted? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and both sets of minutes are adopted. I have really nothing under the mayor's report. And that's because if you remember the last mayor's report, we were talking about the legislative brunch that was going to be held by the Northwest Municipal Conference. I think we did a pretty good job of laying out the, legislative priorities, as we call them, for cities. And then when it came time for the legislators to be able to respond, essentially they talked to each other about why we don't have a state budget. And one legislator came tantalizingly close to actually saying something about the things we were there to talk about and said, I agree with most of your priorities. There are some that I don't, and I'll be happy to talk to you about those if you want to come see me in my office or write me an email. And that was as close as we got to actually discussing city issues. So that's a long way of saying I have no report. Are there ward reports this evening? Then seeing no ward reports and with nobody on the sign-in sheet this evening, there's no need to open the council for public comment, and therefore the council can proceed directly to its business. Its business starts with 2 items that are in for second reading. The first of these is item A. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend a recently adopted provision of the city code concerning the operation of drones. The previous wording was not sufficiently precise to exempt toy drones from its provisions, so this amendment incorporates an FAA guideline to ensure that toy drones do not fall under the requirements of the ordinance. Is there a motion to is there a motion to adopt this ordinance? Ms. Majikis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Prana.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Baner.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Beanbas.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. The next item in for second reading is item B. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve the application for a Class B liquor license for the new owners of Garden Liquors located at 2202 Algonquin. This type of measure is routinely required for any change of ownership, and a Class B liquor license is the most common type of license held by liquor stores. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Diastis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Baner.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Beanbas.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prana.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is hereby declared passed. The consent agenda for first readings only contains 2 items. Therefore, if either item is removed, there is no consent agenda. They are items C and D. Would any alderman like either of those items removed? Mr. Diastis?
C.
Then therefore, there is not a consent agenda, and we shall deal with these each in turn. Item C, this ordinance, if adopted, would amend the portion of the city code that relates to establishing utility recapture agreements. The party installing utilities on a property would have up to 2 years to formally request a recapture agreement, and recapture agreements would have a maximum life of 10 years with the possibility of one 5-year extension. Is there a motion to move this ordinance forward for second reading? Mr. Prana has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Mr. Diastis, you asked that this be pulled. You're entitled to first comment, sir.
Yes, I'd like a little more clarity on the 10-year portion. I understand that the party doing this has 2 years to request something, which seems an awful long time to me. I don't understand what the 10 years is for. Do they have 10 years for what?
Well, I believe the life of the agreement can last that long, which means a payment schedule can be dragged out basically that long. I don't think they usually go 10 years. In my experience, they're usually more something like 5 or 6. But if it's a big ticket item, somebody could agree to pay over a period of 10 years. I believe that's correct. The nodding heads I'm seeing say that that's generally in the ballpark. Mr. Vogt, care to be more specific?
If I could, Mayor, because you're mostly right on the money, no pun intended, but with regards to the time frame, it's to allow that period of time for that person or developer to get monies back should someone wish to tie on to the water system, the sewer system, during that 10-year period of time. Staff felt that reasonable, given its experience in other communities and in discussions with the city engineer, that the 10-year period is reasonable time to get one's investment recouped in all or in part. And certainly if for whatever reason 10 years passes and there haven't been a lot of connections made to that, or they haven't recovered a lot of their investment money, they can certainly come back to the city and ask for an extension.
Okay.
So then it's not necessarily just to spread out money. It could also be just waiting for people to move in and tap on, in which case, does the agreement that kicks in year 9 still allow them to create a payment schedule that could go longer? Or does that mean if you didn't ask until year 9, you got 2 years to pay the recapture?
There really isn't a limit on payment schedules.
Okay.
So you could certainly set up that schedule at the end if there was a desire to set up a payment schedule.
As long as both parties agree.
Yes.
Fair enough. Mr. Diastis, is that a sufficient
fine.
answer? Mm-hmm. Is there further discussion? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I direct this question to either Fred or Barry. To go along with what Mr. Diastis first asked, would it be better for us if it was just a 1-year time frame instead of 2 years? I know in this particular case, you guys had to go back, dig into a lot of things to find everything. I guess I would like to see it 1 year just because it would make it easier on staff from my position, but I'm not trying to speak for staff. It just seems like 2 years, you forget about things, you have to go back and really dig in the files to figure out what was included in it and not included. It's just an opinion of mine, but I guess I'd be supportive of 1 year as opposed to 2, just to make it easier on you guys, if you think it's easier. Kind of a question, kind of a comment, I don't know.
Comments from staff?
Certainly as an incentive to builders and developers, staff wouldn't object to a shorter time, but I can say that from the experiences we've had, sometimes it has taken a year or more to get all parties to agree to the formulations and the like. If council wished to put an incentive on and make the period shorter, I don't think staff would object to it.
And this actually happens so few times we've been able to keep up with it, but that we were just using 2 from our experience, so 1 is flexible.
Mr. Cannon?
So
would
I
you
guess I'd
wish
like to make
seek-
an amendment to switch it to 1.
Second.
The chair would consider an amendment simply to change the 2-year period to 1 year to be sufficiently easy to do, that I don't have a problem with that. It has been seconded by Mr. Diastis. Mr. Cannon, you are entitled to speak first as to the reasons for your amendment. Would you like to consider your comments satisfactory?
I think so, thanks.
Is there further discussion of this amendment only? Then the chair would ask for a voice vote on the motion in Section 1 of the ordinance to strike the word 1 and the number 1 in parentheses, strike the word 2 and the number 2 in parentheses and insert the number 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the council now returns to debate on the ordinance as amended. Is there further discussion of the ordinance as amended? Then seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be moved forward for second reading? The clerk will please call the roll.
Judd.
Yes.
Biancher.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the clerk will please move this amended ordinance forward for second reading. Item D, this ordinance, if adopted, would reduce the membership of the Plan Commission from 9 members to 7 members. Is there a motion to move this ordinance forward for second reading? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the item be moved forward for second reading? The clerk will please call the roll.
Biancher.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the clerk will please move this ordinance forward for second reading. That concludes all the ordinances that are on tonight's agenda, bringing the council to the warrant, the document that releases all the funds for the obligations of the city that were incurred from January 20th through February 2nd. The amount for approval is over $1.4 million, of which roughly 60% is related to the payroll. Is there a motion to approve the warrant as prepared by the Finance Department?
So moved.
Mrs. Majikis has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the warrant be approved? The clerk will please call the roll.
Diestis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Biancher.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the warrant is approved. That brings the council to the consent agenda for resolutions. It contains 6 items, items F through K. Would any alderman like any of those items removed from the consent agenda? Mr. Judd?
F and I.
Items F and I have been removed. Further items to be removed from the consent agenda for resolutions? Then seeing none, the chair asks unanimous consent to consider 4 resolutions, items G, H, J, and K, together in one motion with no debate. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objection, the chair declares it in order for a motion to approve those 4 resolutions on a single vote. Is there such a motion? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Again, the question is, shall all 4 of these resolutions be adopted? Item G would authorize the purchase of 1 detective vehicle. Item H would adopt the ADA transition plan for the city. Item J would approve a legal services termination agreement. And item K would approve the 2016 motor fuel tax appropriation. The question is, shall all 4 resolutions be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
Yes.
Biancher.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, all 4 of those resolutions are adopted. The council therefore returns to item F. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize the purchase of a forestry truck. Mr. Judd, you asked that this item be pulled. You're entitled to first comments if you wish them.
No, thank you.
Is there any further discussion of the resolution? Mr. Diestis.
I'm reading this, I just want to be sure I understand. The Vehicle Replacement Committee is in agreements that we should do this.
That is my reading of the documents as well.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion of the resolution? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Judd.
No.
Biancher.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, this resolution is adopted. Item I is next. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize the purchase of 7 Microsoft Surface Pro 4s for use by the council from Microsoft in Schaumburg. The amount of the purchase is nearly $8,500. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Mr. Banger has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Mr. Judd, you asked that this item be pulled. You're entitled to first comments if you wish them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not in favor of this. I think that I know that we have a desire to upgrade all the computers and to get everybody on Windows 10 and be able to do everything. But I think this is excessive for what we need. I personally don't take my computer home. I've been able to do everything I need to do without it. Having a nice brand new 128 gig hard drive and all the other fancy things I think is unnecessary. If we want to upgrade to Windows 10, I'm on the Best Buy website right now. You can get Microsoft 3, Windows 10 operating system for $400. I think spending this kind of money is excessive and not necessary. Because I can guarantee you, I have no need for it. My family will love it. but I won't have any need for it, and I think we're just spending money for no reason, so I won't support it. Thank you.
Further discussion on the resolution. Mr. Cannon.
I too won't be supporting it. I just don't think, I've been on this council for 5 years. I think from a technology standpoint, we all seem to manage just fine with what we have right now. To spend $8,000 or $9,000 on this just seems to be excessive. I think there's a lot of other places we could spend the money much more appropriately. Thanks.
Further discussion on the resolution. Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I'm going to be supporting this. I demoed the Surface tablet for the last few months. I like it. I'm, I guess, on record a couple times before saying that I think we should upgrade. I remember the last time, I think, we had a conversation about city council raises, and I wasn't in support of that, but I said, hey, one of the things we could get city council is new laptops, and so in pursuing that endeavor, I'll be voting for it tonight. Since I've been on council, I've always looked at things that we're spending money on, and I agonize over the price tags sometimes, but I've talked to Barry about this. It's not like we're going to have staff surfing through eBay and Craigslist to get the best deal on stuff, and a lot of times we have to get things from certain vendors that we have experience with and that are backed up by warranties that your normal user like myself wouldn't be buying. And so I've had sticker shock for the last 5 years, but I've gotten over it because it's just a different world than the Banjer household where we go for the cheapest stuff, and I have my brother-in-law troubleshoot problems on my laptop and then I throw it away. So I'll be supporting this, and I've liked this for the past 2 months, have had no problems with it, and I actually do take these. Well, I don't take my clunky old laptop home. I have been taking this home and using it at home for what that's worth. Thank you.
Mr. Diastis.
I don't know what I don't know. So, and I'm reading this, it just says this is what we should do. So I guess the question is, why should we do this instead of something else?
Well, I believe I'm not prepared to answer that.
I know.
I guess I'm not sure who on staff would.
Doesn't come up in that.
All right, Mr. Chiappetta, you're welcome to come to the microphone. I'm sure there are a number of options, but you guys have selected this one for reasons. So would you care to give a stab at Alderman Diastis' question?
Sure. We did check out the iPads as well and laptops. Laptops, for the amount of time that we use these for council, are more expensive because we have to make them last. These are 10 years old. So in order to get enough horsepower in them to make them last 10 years, those are more expensive. The iPads, the size that the Surface is, the iPads are actually more expensive than that. They were smaller ones, but we didn't think those would work since you guys look at packets up there, and it'd be hard to read. Those were not much less expensive. So we did look at other options, but we thought this would be the best, medium ground.
And the other thing is, in the past, obviously we don't have a lot of spare stuff, so we've borrowed what we have in there. So the laptops are starting to fail when we take them out to other places with their reliability plus their connectivity. Obviously, with the Surfaces, it's going to allow staff to do some other things. We're not saying don't take them home, but if we find them in your thing and we need them, that's one reason why we do have that spare that we do talk about, because there are times that staff does need to be out of the building, and with enough Wi-Fi is out there, it would allow us to continue doing some of our work.
Mr. Diastis?
Okay, well, I guess that pretty much answers my question. I mean, it's not that this was the first thing. You've investigated several different options and are making a recommendation that of all the options that you've investigated, this is the best option.
Correct.
It's been tested, and we've heard Mr. Banger's recommendation, so I guess I'm okay with that. I mean, as long as I know staff has done the necessary research. I don't know if obviously there's less expensive tools out there, and there's probably more expensive tools out there. But it sounds like this is kind of in the middle of the road, and we should get like 10 years out of this one too?
I would say 7 would be probably
Okay.
max on these, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Cannon?
Justin, I was wondering if it would be possible to make a small upgrade to the ones we have right now and get another year or two out of them?
We already upgraded the operating system in Windows 7. That was pushing it. The memory in these are maxed out. We can't install any more memory. The processors pretty much won't support the newer ones. So we are at the limit for hardware upgrades on these.
Okay, and these ones you say are actually breaking down?
Yeah, just last week or last council meeting, you remember we were up dealing with one of the batteries failing.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, these are, we had a wireless issue a couple weeks or a couple months ago as well. So they are failing and they're reached end of life as far as our hardware upgrades.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion on the resolution? Mr. Veenbos?
I'd just like to make a comment that I understand what you're trying to do for the upgrade. I use a Surface Pro at work myself, and I understand this 10-year-old machine, and after 10 years, I think the typical life expectancy is what, like 5 or 6 or on a lot of these?
4 to 5 is right on.
So I'm not saying we're a business, but typically you turn things over in 5 to 6 years. Now, you can use them longer than that, and I've got a few myself at my house, but I understand what you're trying to do. I support it.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the resolution? I would just offer an anecdote because IT knows that I've been grumping about mine. To prepare the documents that I prepare for a council meeting, to boot this thing up, to get Adobe to open the agenda, and to get Word to open a document, and to get Internet Explorer to open up, took 9 minutes and 36 seconds. From hitting the power button just to get those applications to open. And so you can put all the software on PokeJoe here that you want, and it's going to take forever for that software to run because I'm constantly waiting for Microsoft Word to catch up with my fingers while I type. I'm sure there's another Band-Aid that can be put on here, but I think these things are old. To offer a serious suggestion, I believe it could be in order if anyone wishes and says, I don't think this is necessary, the number 7 could be stricken and the number could be reduced. And somebody could say, I don't need one, so don't want to buy one for me until my seat comes open and maybe the next person says. I believe that's a reasonable course of action simply because I believe the last time we talked about this, we talked about cycling through on the city's 4-year cycle. And so I don't think we were necessarily going to do all 7 at once. It seemed to be the thing to do and seems to be wise. If anybody really wanted to make the statement, I'm open to a simple amendment to change the number 7, if anybody would like to make one. Mr. Cannon?
I don't really need mine, so I can make it 6.
Okay. Then there's an amendment to reduce the number 7 to 6. Is there a second for that amendment? Mr. Banger has seconded. Is there discussion necessary? All those in favor of changing the number 7 to 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the resolution is amended. Are there any further amendments to strike the number 6, move it down even lower? Then the resolution is amended at the moment to say 6. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Ms. Majikis?
I'm just going to say I'm in support of this because I've had Justin working on mine 3 times in the last probably 2.5 months. So I'm definitely in support of this.
Mr. Judd?
Thank you, sir. I'm not suggesting these aren't in need of replacement. What I'm suggesting is what we're purchasing is not what we need to purchase, that we can purchase something cheaper. I'm not saying that we need to keep these. What I'm saying is you can buy a laptop for X amount of dollars. You can buy a Surface 3, which is the same thing as a Surface 4, for half the price. And, I just looked on here, 37 gig memory. I've got 15% or 15 gigs used. So I get everything that Justin said. I understand the process of upgrading. I understand you get everything on Windows 10 because then it's all uniform. I'm just saying that we're spending money on what I consider to be excessive piece of machinery that we don't necessarily need and we can buy cheaper. I'm not saying we got to keep these, these are slow and garbage and whatever. I mean, they only go so long, and I get that. But that's all I was saying. It's just, I think we're just going higher than we need. Thank you.
Fair enough, but I believe that it was a fair response to the point that you made in your first comment, that all we have to do is buy software and install it on these, and we're good to go. So I believe at the time it was a fair comment. With your clarification now, I further see your point of view. Further discussion of the resolution. Mr. Diastis.
To that end, is there a less expensive surface that can be purchased that will serve our needs? I don't know, so I just throw that back.
Mr. Chiappetta, would you like to come back to the microphone?
There are less expensive models out there. However, I wouldn't expect to get the 7 years that we'd be looking to get out of them. The specs on these are probably a little much for a 4-year replacement cycle, but if you push it to 7, then that starts to push the hardware, and so we're planning for the future by getting that now.
So essentially, we're going to spend a little bit more now, and we'll get hopefully 7 years out of it, as opposed to spending an amount now and then having to spend it again in 3 or 4 more years.
Correct, that's the goal.
So instead we're spending less than double the price by buying this now.
Right.
Mr. Judd, you've already spoken twice on this resolution, therefore it would require unanimous consent to speak further. Further discussion of the resolution? And then seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? Again, the resolution is amended. The number is no longer 7, the number is now 6. The clerk will please call the roll.
Prina,
Yes.
Majikis,
Yes.
Judd,
No.
Banjer,
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
No.
With 5 in favor and 2 opposed, this resolution is adopted. That brings the council to 2 remaining resolutions that were not on the consent agenda. The first of these is item L. This resolution, if adopted, would enter into a contract with RHMG Engineering of Mundelein to provide construction engineering and part-time field engineering observation services for the work to be performed on lift station number 1. The amount of the contract is not to exceed $22,000 and will be paid from the utilities fund. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Mrs. Majikis, as the alderman of the ward, has made the motion and has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Majikis,
Yes.
Judd,
Yes.
Banjer.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yeah.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this resolution is adopted. The final resolution on tonight's agenda is Resolution M. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize a contract with Engineering Resource Associates of Warrenville to provide field survey and design work for the proposed Theta Lane and Fremont Street stormwater project. The amount of the contract is not to exceed $26,000, and the funds are to be paid from the utilities fund. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Mr. Prana, as the alderman of the ward, has made the motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm for this resolution. I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the shuffle that we're moving money from the Kennedy Pond Spillway program that was supposed to be done this year. I want to make sure that we do everything possible to get that done as early as we can next season. I just don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. I want to make sure we have it's on record.
It's a perfectly fair point, especially considering some of the things that we recently discussed where stuff got moved and then it seemed that it got forgotten that it got moved. I wholeheartedly support your comments. Mr. Prana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, Mr. Cannon, I will be supporting that because thank you. I also want to thank staff. This is a issue that's been going on for over a year. We've had, well, longer than that, but we've had meetings out there on the street and in people's homes, and I just want to thank Fred and Public Works for coming because we're partnering with Salt Creek, and so it's going to overall save us some money and save the city some time and also help the residents. So I just want to say thank you.
Further discussion of the resolution. Mr. Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the staff for, and Fred, if you put it together, it's going to actually be on the staff report, but explaining the special service area, why it doesn't apply here. That's helpful to me in the whole process. appreciate the clarifications on it, so thank you.
So noted. Further discussion of the resolution? Then seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? The clerk will please call the roll.
Judd?
Yes.
Banjer?
Yes.
Diestis?
Yes.
Veenbos?
Yes.
Cannon?
Yes.
Prina?
Yes.
Majicus?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this resolution is adopted. That concludes all of the items on tonight's agenda for the council. I have no appointments nor proclamations this evening. Does the city clerk have a report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Then therefore, Mr. Crumpstock, community items of interest, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Obviously, we have 5 on the sheet that people at home can actually pass, but I have 3 additional ones that I have since this was typed. Obviously, the first one is that this Friday is the end of the Holiday Light collection that we have here at City Hall, so the City Swank and Elgin Recycling. It is done. Those 2 boxes will be moved out hopefully next week, so you won't see them anyway. The other item, and you'll hear this for the next few months, it's February and March, but the Rotary St. Patrick's Day dinner is scheduled for Saturday, March 12th. It's the 16th annual St. Patrick's Day dinner and auction. Rotary will be conducting it like usual. Last year it was a little bit larger because it was part of the 60th anniversary. But it does take place at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Rolling Meadows Community Center, 3705 Pheasant Drive. For more information or to purchase a ticket, you can see the Rotarian across the way, Public Works Director Fred Vogt, or you can contact Rolling Meadows Park District Director Amy Charlesworth at 847-818-3220. And again, on Tuesday nights when he's here, he'll actually have some tickets if you'd like to purchase. And then our next blood drive is scheduled for Tuesday, March 22nd from noon to 6 p.m. at Fire Station 16. Walk-ins are welcome, and to register, please contact 847-397-3352, and that's 2455 Plum Grove Road. And obviously what we do on the off months, we want to remind people that February's electronic news and views, or what we call the e-news, is actually on our website. And as a reminder to residents, we continue to do a printed version of the news and views, and then we have the electronic ones on the off months. And then, obviously, we haven't said this for a little bit, but the Rolling Meadows Fire Department is still offering home safety surveys to the city's senior citizens. The senior safety program is for residents age 65 and older. Trained fire department personnel will perform the safety survey, and they provide guidance. And they also make sure that you have an installed fire smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide. And again, if you want additional information, you're senior 65 and older, please contact the fire department at 847-397-3352. One of the additions that I do want to mention is Tuesday, February 16th is the last day to register to vote for the March 15th presidential primary election. The other one that I do want to mention is if you contact your assessor's office, specifically, they can tell about disabled veterans property tax exemption. That was something relatively new that's out there. It's been in effect since 2007, but part of the law was additional information that needs to be out there. So if you're a disabled veteran, please contact your assessor's office. There's all different kinds of tax savings, and it all depends on level of disability. And then the final one is actually one that I do want to make a congratulations, and I hope that the press sitting in the back picks this one up. But we do have a company in the city. They're known as Plumbing Manufacturers International. They recently provided roughly enough equipment, faucets, and plumbing supplies, and then 470 plumbers in the city of Flint went around, and they helped out about 1,500 homes. So again, just want to make sure that PMI gets a good note. It was very, very nice what they did for Flint, Michigan. There's a press release that came out about it. And for people who don't know where PMI, where their headquarters are, they're at 1921 Rowling Road. And we do greatly appreciate what they did for Flint, Michigan. With that, those are the 3 additionals that we do.
I like that additional one. Let's see, I see no questions from the council. Therefore, the item that Mr. Judd was making mention of, the South Park Special Service Area Staff Report, Mr. Vogt?
Thank you, Mayor, and that report is in the packet, and I'll just be brief in summarizing that at the January Committee of the Whole meeting, staff was asked to assess the warrant or worthiness of a special service area to be considered for the Theta Fremont South Park area. We took a look at that based on old files, based on previous proposals for special service areas, and while we did find the special service area number 2 was on Kirchhoff Road about 10 years ago. It was specifically for backyard drainage where none had existed. There were no pipes there. So that was considerably worthy of a special service area for those that were benefiting. In the case of the Theta and Fremont South Park area, what we're proposing is to upsize existing pipes, those that were built pre-annexation of the area and prior to the expressway being built. Staff use that and the maintenance of some of the grading that we need to do there as what's typical for the city to do with stormwater management fund revenues, as well as the fact that we've had several flood control projects over the years that have utilized the stormwater management fund for improvements without causing the property owners to pay a special service area fee. So that really is the summary of what our report says in regard to consideration of that.
Then Ms. Gallagher, the purchase order disclosure over $2,500?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a routine purchase order for review by City Council.
Then finally, the committee of the whole agenda for next week. Mr. Crumstock.
There's 3 items on the agenda that will be prepared. There's a 4th one that I'm trying to resurrect, but need to potentially, and part of the resurrection is that I'm trying to keep it off of March or April because March will be a little busier with South Bay coming back. But right now for February 16th, the committee of the whole, we have a fire station project manager award. There will be a staff report, and then the group will actually do a small presentation for the introduction back to the council. 2015 economic development recap that I usually do, short and sweet. And then the EAB update will be coming. We do this annually to remind people, again, that is part of our budget. And then the 4th one that I'm hopefully typing and resurrecting, that one's regarding Gateway Park, but I still have to do some additional points. The reason that it would be coming up this early is that for the 2017 budget, it would be part of that, hopefully, but we need to have that discussion before any point. And as I said, I'm trying to move it up because March may be a little bit longer. So those would be the 4 that I'm working on. 3 are already done.
Then that concludes all the items that are on the agenda. Are there matters not on the agenda before the council this evening? Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I had mentioned at our last meeting that the Rolling Meadows Garden Club is meeting tomorrow night, 6:30, and I'll be giving a beekeeping presentation. One of the things I also wanted to mention is I am going to be bringing back that backyard beekeeping ordinance after I talk to staff about it. And see if I can get that through council. I've come to terms with a lot of the parts in it this past year, and I have some helpful suggestions that I think will make it a better ordinance. And I'm going to try to get that back in front of us as quickly as possible because now's the time for wannabe beekeepers to be ordering boxes of bees and queens. So that plus I'm going to start brainstorming with staff about putting together a community beehive, most likely over by the community garden, which is an ideal spot. Schaumburg has one. I'm going to try to copy their model, and I'll just try to line up the dough to do it without using city funds, but I want to get that started as well. So I just wanted to kind of telegraph my intentions to get that back in front of council at some point in the hopefully near future. Thank you.
As long as some of the provisions are materially different, it is certainly in order for any idea to come back again. So therefore, if you wouldn't mind, when these things get put together, if somebody might pre-point out the differences between the last one and this one that, at least for the subject, are materially different, that is what makes it proper procedure to follow. And so somehow or another, having the write-up include those things, I believe, would be helpful.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Fair enough. Other matters not on the agenda. Mr. Prana.
I just have a quick comment. I appreciate the farm boy in Alderman Banjer, and I just wanted him to know that our family would rather buy Banjer honey than raise our own bees. Thank you.
Other matters not on the agenda. Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, or maybe someone can comment. I'm not sure who would want to address this, but, in the next couple of months, we're going to be faced with making a big decision on the Dominic's project. The concern I have is that, Clark Development has owned that property for a number of years, and I know they've made an effort to find retailers for the area. My concern is that I don't know how much they've gone outside their expertise to try to bring other types of entities into there. And I don't know, I'm not making a statement, I'm just kind of asking, kind of talking. Is there anything we can do as a city? I mean, we're going to make a major decision that's going to have a long-term impact on how our downtown is going to be. And the fact that we have a private company directing that decision concerns me. It's not necessarily that I'm for or against what's going on, but I'm wondering if we're getting the best possible outcome there because of their background. I mean, they have a vested interest to get rid of the property. I understand that. And I know they've done a decent job of trying to get retail in there. But have they looked at mixed use? Have they looked at straight residential? I know we have the one proposal in front of us, and I guess I'm fearful that that's the only thing we're going to see. And we really don't know who else has been exposed to that might be a potential buyer, but was basically locked out of the situation because they didn't think it was available because of zoning issues. In light of the fact that we're switching zoning, I guess I would like to have a more broad-based discussion on what other possibilities might be available for that. And again, I'm not necessarily for or against what's down there or what they're proposing, but I don't think as a city we're doing ourselves any great service by just saying, okay, it's been empty for many years, here's a possibility. Absolutely, it's a possibility, but is it the best one for that area? I mean, like one of the members of our council said, if we give this up for the senior center, there'll never be another downtown part of downtown down there. And if they decide 5 years later they want to sell the property, maybe it'll become an apartment complex or something else. We lose control of it. So I guess I'm not really sure where I'm trying to bring this thing because I don't know where you go with it, but I guess I'd just like to have a discussion somewhere along the line, whether it's part of the COW or part of the March presentation thing, and find out if there's ways we can get other people to take a look at it as a potential investment for their kind of business, as opposed to just a senior center.
I off the top of my head, have a suggestion. I wonder if it might be sufficient for what you're looking for. Along the lines of a recent discussion we had, somebody who's smart and knows how to read tea leaves would simply take those comments and make that a part of the March presentation when they come, to provide a history of what kind of marketing they did out to different places and so forth and so on. The reason I make that suggestion is because I believe that is the limit of what a prudent council ought to do. Perhaps maybe there's a philosophy of government difference here, but there is a business transaction underway, and the council is not the property owner, and therefore to try to knock off a business deal that somebody has because we would maybe like to see something different, I believe is very thin ice for a council to be on. I know you're not suggesting that directly because you've said you don't have a position, but I guarantee you that's how it'll be taken. And so therefore, I wonder if taking the step of asking, can you give us a history? I think from my own way of thinking with the fellows from Clark Street, they can show you all the different retail-ish type of things that they tried to look for and the different kinds of people they marketed for, and perhaps that might be satisfactory without getting us into areas of, quite frankly, government interference, which I seem to think in the past most of us stand opposed to. And so would that be sufficient as a starting place? That
Sure. Again, I don't have, I guess, Mr. Mayor, again, I'm not trying to put our stamp on it, but I guess, in light of the fact that we have the property zoned a certain way right now, the proposal in front of us is asking to make a major change in that property from what it's zoned. So, doesn't that give us a little leeway? I'm asking, I'm not telling, I'm asking.
Well, no, I don't agree with that statement. I believe that thoroughly exaggerates what they need from the city. The fact that this particular parcel has already been rezoned once and then rezoned back to describe what they need from us as a major change, I believe is trying to overplay our hand. And so perhaps maybe what we might want to do is just simply offer some friendly advice to the gentlemen who are going to be coming in from South Bay. To be fair to them, I know that they offered to Mr. Crumstock that, if you want, we'll have them get up and speak and make this a part of the presentation. And the advice they got in return was don't muddy the waters. If the council would like them to speak to that, maybe that would give the story to most people's satisfaction. But I would say I'm not personally willing to go any further than that because I don't know how many times I can keep saying the downside of property rights is that property owners get to do what they do. And we don't have a great big anything to use. So could we start there? I'll just ask that.
Sure.
All right, let's start there, and then if that discussion is not satisfactory to enough members of the council, maybe we can try to think of some things that could push a little farther without pushing too far. I would be open to that based on what they say.
Fair enough.
Other matters not on the agenda? Then seeing none, there is a request to go into closed session this evening. They're technically two different requests, but they hover around the same subjects, specifically union negotiations with the police department, which falls under subsection C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, and union negotiations with the fire department, which also falls under the same subsection. Therefore, it does require a formal motion and a roll call vote. Is there a motion to go into closed session for those purposes? Mr. Veenbos has made the motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the council enter closed session for those two purposes? The clerk will please call the roll.
Baner.
Yes.
Diestis.
Yes.
Veenbos.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Prina.
Yes.
Majikis.
Yes.
Joe.
With 6 yeses and a reluctant yes, the council will now enter closed session. Members of the audience and of the press are advised that we do not expect to take action upon returning to open session.
Man,
Yeah.